In the 2nd century BCE, long before TripAdvisor, there was Philo Mechanicus. This Greek engineer, also known as Philo of Byzantium, compiled a list of manufactured monuments that every aspiring traveler should visit. If it was written in the modern age, you can bet the title would have been something like Most Instagrammable Places to Visit Before You Die. But as this was ancient Greece, it was called On the Seven Wonders of the World. Philo acknowledges that the seven wonders were well known in his era. Still, only the most seasoned traveler had visited them. So, what were these ancient wonders, and what was their impact on history? Number 1. The Great Pyramid of Giza, 2550 BCE to the present. The first on the list is the only ancient wonder that still stands today, which is striking since this is the oldest wonder on the list, and the most extreme example of the phrase, "they don't make them like they used to." The Great Pyramid was well over 2,000 years old during Philo's lifetime, and he described the construction as beyond the strength of men, and that to be built, either men had to rise to the level of gods, or the gods come down to man. These assertions prove that the nature of people hasn't changed much since at least 250 BCE. The Great Pyramid's effect on history is that it elevated the Egyptian infrastructure to where ancient Egypt is still widely seen as one of the most prominent ancient societies. The building of the pyramid was a large-scale operation that required management, labor, and trade. As a result, many Egyptians were employed and fed, while trade relations between Egypt and its neighbors were strengthened. The building of the pyramids also markedly affected the organization of labor. It was long believed that enslaved people had built the pyramids, suffering under harsh conditions. However, evidence suggests that most of the workforce were professional workers and traders. The workers were housed in a purpose-built town, and archaeologists at el-Ghurab have found houses, bakeries, and breweries that would have kept the workers rested and fed after a long day's work. There were also corrals for livestock and silos for storing grain, meaning the pyramid project did more than employ builders. Larger houses have also been found at el-Ghurab, where high-ranking officials and administrators were housed. The pyramids at Giza have long stood for what humans can accomplish. Still, it is telling that historians have assumed that it all came down to forced labor. When we look at the Great Pyramid in the light of being an economical and structured project completed by well-compensated workers, perhaps we still have something to learn from this ancient society. Number 2. The Statue of Zeus at Olympia, 466 BCE to the 5th century CE. Located in southern Greece, the statue was around 40 feet high, around the height of a 4-story building, and clad in gold and ivory. Zeus was depicted sitting on an ornate cedar wood throne decorated in precious stones, ebony, ivory, and gold. The huge figure held a statue of Nike in his outstretched right hand, while his left grasped a scepter on which an eagle perched. For 1,000 years, the statue was visited and admired by tourists. It defined the standard Grecian depiction of Zeus, with the pose copied on pottery, gemstones, and coins, including Alexander the Great's silver tetradrachms. Zeus's skin was made of carved ivory, using an unknown technique to make the ivory more malleable. The lifelike quality of the statue's skin inspired many Grecian sculptors to strive for realism, which, in turn, inspired the incredible sculptures created during the Renaissance. The statue was a symbol of Greek accomplishment. It is said that when the Roman Emperor Caligula tried to bring the sculpture to Rome, the effigy of Zeus let out a sudden shout of laughter, and those working to dismantle the structure fell. While the statue no longer exists, in the 1950s, the workshop of the sculptor, Phidias, was discovered, allowing historians to set a date for its creation. The statue was an important tourist attraction and a magnificent work of art and engineering that inspired sculptors and craftspeople for centuries, even after its eventual destruction. Number 3. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, 550 BCE to 262 CE. Philo states that whoever gazed upon the Temple of Artemis will believe that the heavenly world of the immortals has changed places with the earth. It was located on the west coast of Anatolia in modern-day Turkey. This temple made it onto the list due to its enormous proportions, at around double the size of the Parthenon and other Greek temples. It was built to honor the goddess of hunting and childbirth, And the third iteration of the temple was the one considered a wonder. The temple had been destroyed twice, the second time coinciding with the birth of Alexander the Great. Alexander later even offered to pay for the temple to be rebuilt. However, the people of Ephesus declined, reasoning that it was inappropriate for a god to dedicate offerings to gods. The temple was often called the greatest of the seven wonders due to its size, beauty, and position overlooking the sea. Antipater of Sidon, another ancient travel blogger, wrote, "I have set eyes upon the wall of lofty Babylon, and the statue of Zeus by the Alpheus, and the hanging gardens, and the Colossus of the Sun, and the huge labor of the high pyramids, and the vast tombs of Mausolus. But when I saw the Temple of Artemis, which rose to the clouds, these other marvels lost their brilliance. And I exclaimed, Lo, apart from Olympus, the sun has never looked upon aught so grand." The Temple of Artemis was essential to the Ephesian economy, bringing in many tourists. It also played a role in spreading Christianity, and it is said that the Virgin Mary spent her last years in Ephesus. St. Paul and St. John also came to Ephesus in the 1st century CE to rebuke the cult of Artemis. Where better to start than at the famous temple? The saints won many converts in the area, and the town officials even defended the Christians when a man named Demetrius plotted to turn against Paul and his disciples. Demetrius was concerned that the spread of Christianity would ruin his business of making silver coins bearing the likeness of Artemis. Number 4. The Mausoleum at Halicarnassus, 351 BCE to the 13th century CE. This gigantic tomb was located in southwest Anatolia, commissioned by the wife and sister of the ruler of Caria. Mausolus was the Persian governor of Caria, a predominantly independent state, and he planned the tomb before he died in around 353 BCE. Mausolus's sister wife, Artemisia, brought architects and sculptors from Greece to design and decorate the structure, and hundreds of craftspeople and workers completed the project. The tomb was built using 3 styles: Greek, Lycian, and Egyptian. The structure was built on a hill for maximum impact and was comprised of a platform with an enclosed courtyard. The courtyard held statues of lions, gods, and goddesses, while in the center of the forum was the mausoleum, covered in white Proconnesian marble. It was a remarkable feat of art and engineering and used optical illusion to create a sense of grandeur. It outlasted all the other wonders, excluding the Great Pyramid, and was destroyed by an earthquake sometime between the 12th and 15th centuries. The main historical impact of this building is in the name. Mausolus wanted to be remembered in history, and his name was given to the tomb where he lay. The term mausoleum is still used to describe a building that holds people's coffins above ground, which comes directly from the name of Mausolus's final resting place. Number 5. The Colossus of Rhodes, 292 to 226 BCE. The Colossus of Rhodes is the only wonder on Philo's list built during the era in which he lived, having been constructed only 8 years before the engineer-cum-travel writer was born. Because of this, Philo gives us a detailed description of how the Colossus was built. Built as an effigy of Helios, the sun god, Philo notes, "The artist used so much bronze for the work that there was almost a shortage of metals, for all the Earth's mines were exploited carrying out the project." He tells how, after the pedestal and the feet of the Colossus were built, the base was already greater than any other statues, and it was not possible to lift the rest of the statue into place above. So, in order to achieve this, the artist cast the rest of the statue beforehand. As parts of the Colossus were finished, the artist poured a huge quantity of earth about the base, that part already completed, so that he might finish the next parts from ground level. He gradually ascended to the very topmost point of his desire, making a godlike image. The artist in question was Charles of Lindos, but he never saw the finished statue, as he died before it was completed. The Colossus took 12 years to complete and was set to guard the harbor of Mandrake. It was built to commemorate Rhodes's victory when Demetrius Poliorcetes attempted to besiege the island in 305 BCE and, according to legend, used bronze from Demetrius's defeated war machines. The Colossus was said to be 105 feet high, around the size of a 10-story building, and was toppled during an earthquake in the 3rd century BCE. The fallen statue remained on Rhodes for nearly 900 years before it was broken up by Arabian forces who sold the bronze as scrap. It is said that it took over 900 camels to transport the vast amount of bronze from the site. The legend of the Colossus had such a marked impact on history that the French sculptor Friedrich Auguste Bartholdi drew inspiration from the remarkable figure when designing the Statue of Liberty. Without the Colossus, New York Harbor might look remarkably different. Number 6. The Pharos of Alexandria, 274 BCE to 1480 CE. This incredible lighthouse isn't actually on Philo's list of wonders, probably since its construction took place during Philo's lifetime. Instead, Philo includes the Walls of Babylon, commissioned by the legendary Queen Semiramis. The lighthouse at Alexandria replaces the Walls of Babylon in other Grecian lists of ancient wonders from around the 6th century CE. However, it was a well-known tourist destination before this. Despite Philo's book featuring heavily in this video, we will bow to the majority and look at the Pharos of Alexandria. The lighthouse was reportedly over 350 feet, making it well over the height of the Statue of Liberty, including its plinth. In some reports, it had a statue on its pinnacle, either of Alexander the Great or Ptolemy I Stoter, modeled as the sun god Helios. The lighthouse at Alexandria was built in 3 stages. It was square at the bottom, octagonal in the middle section, and cylindrical on top. The spiral ramp led up to the peak on which a fire burned as a beacon to ships. The famous lighthouse has served as the model for all lighthouses since, changing the history of sailing by increasing the safety of making port in bad weather conditions and alerting sailors to unseen dangers. An earthquake in the 1300s damaged the lighthouse, and during the medieval period, Sultan Ahmed ibn Tulun added a small mosque in place of the beacon. The structure was rebuilt as a fort in 1477 by Sultan Kayet Bey. However, if you enjoy diving, you can still visit the underwater remains of the lighthouse. In 1994, archaeologist Jean-Yves Zempereur discovered statues and masonry blocks in the waters near Pharos Island. Number 7. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, approximately 600 to 226 BCE. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon is the only wonder on the list that has never been found, causing some to speculate that these famous gardens never existed in the first place. Philo describes them in great detail, claiming that the plants were suspended in the air, having shoots which are supported away from the ground. He also describes beams made from palm trees, moistened so that it will bend back after being pressed upwards by weights. Moreover, it feeds the fibers and tendrils of the roots, which mix with the matter in its own cells and sinews. They were considered to be located near the Babylonian royal palace, although no evidence has been found. The search for the Hanging Gardens has led to many different theories, including that it was actually in Nineveh and was built in the 7th century BCE by an Assyrian king, or that it lies under the waters of the Euphrates River. Some speculate that the gardens did not hang, but were roof gardens laid out in terraces and watered by an elaborate irrigation system using water pumped up from the Euphrates. Historians also cannot agree on who built the gardens. The 2 leading contenders are Queen Samur-Ramat, who reigned from 810 to 783 BCE, and King Nebuchadnezzar II, who reigned between 605 and 561 BCE. The most famous tale gives the reason for the garden's construction to be for the consolation of Nebuchadnezzar's wife, who missed her lush, mountainous homeland. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon prove how enduring legends can be, demonstrating our fluctuating understanding of history and the limitations of archaeological evidence. How can such a well-known structure disappear without a trace? And what other tantalizing remains of human endeavor have been lost to history? How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about human history, check out our Captivating History book series, available as ebooks, paperbacks, and audiobooks. Also, grab your free mythology bundle ebook while it's still available. All links are in the description.